Saturday is Veterans Day, and we are having a ceremony here at the airport in Legacy Park. And we are having a combat veterans panel of speakers. Colonel Roy Martin, he was U.S. Air Force, he's retired, flew F-4s in Southeast Asia. He flew the Phantom in Operation Linebacker and Operation Linebacker 2. Colonel Russ Stewart, U.S. Air Force, he was a forward air controller, and he flew the O2 Super Skymaster, you know, the Cessna with the engine on the front and the back. I can't imagine going in a prop-driven airplane unarmed. Good night. Anyway, and Ralph Wise, our own Ralph Wise, just down the way here, he was in the Marines, a captain. He flew F-4s and 173 combat missions. And he was also a forward air controller. I'd rather be in an F-4 than a Cessna. But, and then Lieutenant Colonel Richard Dick Rattan, he flew only 325 combat missions in Vietnam, and 105 of them with the Misties. And they were a Super Sabre factory forward air control mission, and it was a high risk operation. They went in low and fast, but it was surprising how many of them actually got shot down. And Russ Stewart, he told, no, it was Roy, said, I got over there and I'm young and I'm excited about being a fighter pilot. He said, I met this really neat guy, and I thought, we're gonna do good. The next day, the guy was killed. And he said that just drove it home to him. This is life and death. And Roy is such a great guy and a great speaker. But he says it changed my life forever. Just that one day, that one experience. So I think it'll be interesting to hear their stories. They'll just tell one or two short stories each. But to hear it from the different perspectives, I think will be interesting. It's a fly-in static display of aircraft also. I'm going to ask Dave Van Hoy to bring the T-6 down, because everybody who flew in World War II trained in a T-6. And I'm hoping that my friend with the AH-1 Cobra can bring it out, because everybody loves to hear a Huey fly by. And I think Gal's got the battery charger on her B model, so we might be flying that. I wish I could be in two places at once. But anyway, we'll have coffee and cookies after the ceremony. And the sponsors are the Mojave Transportation Museum, Mojave Chamber of Commerce, and the Mojave Air and Spaceport. So come to our ceremony at 11 a.m. on Veterans Day. Following Saturday, November 18th, we've got Plain Crazy Saturday. I don't have enough to do in November. I think there's Thanksgiving too. But anyway, our speaker is, again, a Vietnam veteran. He was a colonel in the United States Marine Corps, and he flew F-4s as well. But after he retired, he went to work for Westinghouse, worked for them for a while, and then went to work for NASA. And his talk is going to be bipolar and proud of it. He did missions over the North and South Pole while flying for NASA. And his name is Dick Ewers, and he's from Ridgecrest. And I had a message on my Facebook page that anybody that comes and hears him is in for a real treat. So I've never heard him speak, so I'm looking forward to it. I hope you can come. And that's November 18th from 10 to 2, keeping my fingers crossed for good weather. Weather on Veterans Day is supposed to be beautiful. It's amazing. It's usually 50 degrees, 50 knot wind, but it's supposed to be 70 degrees with light winds, so hallelujah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Are there any other community announcements? If there are none, we move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion by Director Deaver, second by Mr. Allred. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 4A.
Good afternoon. One of the action items we have for approval today is the finance and investment policy. This was presented to the board in early October for review. So unless anyone has any items to discuss with this policy, I'll just kind of keep it short. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through it. So this is again an effort to update our administrative.
Are there any questions from the board or staff?
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Deaver. Is there any public comment on this item? All right. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Being none, motion passes unanimously. Item 4B.
Our general liability insurance policy is up for renewal, and we were approached a couple months back by our fuel provider, Fuel. They have an insurance brand called Assurance, and they insure a lot of airports and a lot of FBOs around the country. I think we said today we have 23 customers in California alone. So there was a list that was included in the packet. It's not a comprehensive list. They've got several other customers in the region. So we did ask them to submit a bid for a policy for general liability, and we were kind of surprised to see pretty significant difference between what Shaw Moses came back with and what Assurance came back with. So it's a $30,000 cost savings to the district if we choose to go with Assurance. I feel pretty comfortable with them. We have a long-standing relationship with Fuel, and Assurance is a sister company, or actually, excuse me, it's a subsidiary of Fuel. So the fact that we've got the existing relationship, they've got experience, they insure a lot of airports, and it's a $30,000 cost savings, I have no reason to not recommend switching. But I do want the board to discuss if there are any questions we can help answer.
I appreciate you shopping. I think we should do that on our insurance annually every few years. You tend to get insurance creep, if I experienced over the years. Sometimes you're surprised like this to find out today. And to me, it looks like it's more for less.
Is there any other questions from the board or staff? Is there any public comment? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to switch.
Motion by Mr. Valentine to approve AB Insurance. Is that seconded by Mr. Allred? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Being none, motion passes unanimously. 5A, financial report.
This is for the report for a month ending September 30th, 2017. Bank balance for the month is down $176,000. That's primarily due to the Building 155 purchase going through in September. So that made the biggest impact on that. And then we'll get into a little bit more on the budget to actuals as far as on the expenses and kind of where we're at. Our fuel sales in September have been increased due to the F-18s that were coming in.
I'm coming over my roof of the tree.
I heard that one.
Yes.
The tower was open?
Yes, sure.
On the AR report, we are working on a couple tenants. We are sending out paying quits on a couple of them, and as well as working with legal on a couple others. On Explorer.
Yeah, I expect to have a little bit more of an update from Explorer in the coming days, maybe up to a week or so, and I'll inform the board as soon as I have more. So they've been generally responsive, and I'm just kind of waiting to hear back from them at this point.
Thank you. Tell us about the fitness center. How are we doing there?
Rena and Kevin had a meeting with the fitness center, kind of where they're at and where they're going.
Okay.
So they're staying steady at 500-ish members. They kind of cleaned house in August and canceled a lot of memberships that were no-shows for a long time, not responding, not paying. So August looks like a bad month, but September's kind of back on track. And we talked about a couple of other initiatives that they're going to implement. They're going to make go around to various companies and offer, trials for that company for a week at a time or something like that, so their employees can come in and get used to it. Golden Queen, they've reached out to the school district as well, so they're anticipating kind of spike in January, as everyone does after holidays. So we'll I'd like to see how we're doing beginning of the first quarter and then see if we need to reassess at that point. Because we still consider it, a huge benefit to the companies out here and a lot of them take advantage of it. But I would love to see that number double.
Are we marketing to the broader audience rather than just specific companies and tenants like that? I know that's a huge value for them, but just like you said, the first of the year, people tend to, I would think it'd be an opportunity time
New Year's
to have maybe a
resolutions.
broader marketing to the general public. Edwards Air Force Base,
Exactly.
people traveling back and forth to Tasman County.
So that's what they're doing is marketing more to that group. And, like Edwards Air Force Base, for instance, their facilities closed on Sundays, I think, at least it was a couple years ago. So I think we have an advantage in the fact that it's 24/7 access, it's valuable to them.
Now, okay, what about putting a little flyer in all the hotel reception,
Yeah, they either have done that or are doing it, so when it's coming here, we met with them in September, and that was one of the things that they were going to do, so they probably have done that right now. Not following.
Yeah, maybe the truck stop too.
Yeah. They actually went down to the various hotels to see what kind of fitness centers they have, so they thought it was a good opportunity to market it there.
Yeah. So you want to reassess this after the first quarter, which would be completion of a year, right?
Right, so we started this in April, and I kind of wanted to give it, my hope was that we could break even after a year. We may not hit that, which will be a huge surprise, but hopefully we'll come a little bit closer than we are at least.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do they handle the pickleball, or could you have tournaments or something like
Yep.
that?
In fact, Scales has something like 6 softball teams.
Wow.
So what we did with the fitness centers, they're going to start using the baseball field over here. We just have to figure out lighting because it's so dark now at 5. So they want to be able to use it in the evenings. So the tournaments, yeah, exactly. So the basketball that's over there, the pickleball court, and softball, they're going to start marketing that as well.
Good, good.
Is there any questions regarding budget to actual report? Do you have any comments on that?
Just a couple things to highlight. So a couple of the items that, if you look at the percent of budget column to the far right, what we're really looking for is a ballpark of 25%, since this is through the first quarter. So if you notice any expenses that are over 25%, those are kind of the areas that we tend to concentrate on a little bit more. And it's always typical for us to have, especially repairs and maintenance, to be higher than the 25% because we tend to really pile on the repairs in the beginning of the year, beginning of the fiscal year. So July, August sees a lot of repairs and maintenance. Crack ceiling happens in July, for instance, and that's usually a $50,000 expense. We did a roof repair for $70,000. So a lot of things that we kind of tend to wait toward the end of the fiscal year. If we wait until July, that's why it's generally front-loaded. Same thing with outside services. So our pavement analysis, for instance, some of these things that we tend to wait until the new fiscal year. So I expect by the end of this calendar year, by the end of December, a lot of these expenses will even out.
What's the deal with California City Grant? They don't want their money?
So what we decided to do, instead of pay them directly into their general fund, what we're going to do is pay a vendor once the work is completed for the airport improvements.
Are they gonna have a project or not? Do we know?
They supposedly have, I think it's $1 million grant this year from the FAA for their taxi improvements, so they should complete that this year.
Have a new $1 million taxiway, and I'm gonna be the only airplane that used it.
They do have the RC club there.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Any other questions for the financial reports? All right, CEO report, please.
So November is a very busy month for us. We have a lot going on. We have a lot of visitors, a lot of meetings, a lot of interest, renewed interest and new interest from the FAA with our industry, that John's heavily involved with right now. One question I have for the board, hopefully you've had a chance to read through some of these updates. The Next Generation Suborbital Research Conference is going to take place in Colorado, December 18th and 20th. I'd like to get even a tentative idea if anyone hopes to attend, because I need to extend the head count soon, because we're sponsoring. We have a couple of registrations along with sponsorship. So if anyone can let me know maybe after the meeting, if you plan to go, or even thinking about going to, we can start looking at reserving some spots. That'd be great.
I've attended it twice, and I found it very enjoyable. Several of our tenants are represented there, and of course we are sponsored. I just find it a little enlightening that it's relative to our industry. You really see who the players are. There's other spaceports there, there's customers. I would encourage the board members at least attend it once. Just to kind of, it gives you a little vision outside the airport function of what's going on in the industry.
I haven't actually been to this one, so this is the third time they're doing this conference, and they had a couple year gap in between.
Right, there was one up north, Silicon Valley, and then, yeah, I guess I've been to
Where is it located, Camille?
Broomfield, Colorado,
Wow.
December 18th.
yeah, it's kind of,
Wow.
I don't
Do you
particularly
ski?
like their choice of dates, it's usually a little earlier in the year, but.
Right.
That's a tough date
Yeah.
for the holidays.
Really get smoky meal on the conference center, I would imagine. And then a couple other just things to highlight maybe. I'm going to be meeting down in LA on Thursday with the head of the regional office for EDA, which is the Economic Development Administration. We've gotten an EDA grant way back when, it was probably 2009 or 10, to install utilities down here, near the Sherlock hangar. And EDA really is all about job creation. So I'm going to go down there and meet with the gentleman, Will Marshall, give him a list of the projects that we want to complete. He feels like we're a good candidate for the program. We just have to really narrow our focus on what would be a good project. It's a 50-50 match. My big pitch to him is going to be the perimeter road, because it's a huge expense for us. It's something that we need. I'd love to be able to market the rocket test area more than we are, but it's hard to do that when you have to drive 15 miles an hour.
Didn't we have an application with them for the railroad, picking up the railroad?
Yes.
Where we're at with that?
So, what's interesting is we had gotten word from the county a while ago that we won the grant. But then when I talked to Will Marshall about what we need to do to actually claim it, he said we didn't win it. So I'm not quite sure if it's something else that the county, if there was another rail-related project that the county just bundled this into. I don't really know.
I think so, yeah.
This is strange, but I'll talk to him about that again. The rail is a more challenging one because it was a really expensive project. It was minimum $1.5 million to upgrade the spur. And the challenge that we have is we really only have one customer that uses it. So I'd love to be able to invest in it, but it was a huge expense for the airport at the time.
On the project?
So the most they funded for EDA, I think, is $3 million. That's what I've seen. The sweet spot for them is about $1 million. But everything is 50-50 match. And it's based on several factors, including the unemployment rate in the region, which they've been on the county for years. But the fact that Mojave is an underserved area, we're kind of in this, what they call a hub zone for the Small Business Administration. We seem like a good candidate for the program. So I've engaged a grant writer to help us with the process, who is very experienced in writing EDA grants. He's going to meet me down in LA he's coming out from the area, meeting in LA to see what it's going to take to actually win this.
Better hurry up, our unemployment rate seems to get better every month.
Right. And then I did hear back from iBank, finally. It's been probably 3 months. And we're now invited to apply. So it's another 3 months. So I've got to go through the process of figuring out what's in the paperwork and what's really involved in getting an iBank loan. So this, to refresh your memory, was to see what it would take for us to take on financing to build hangars on the airport. So this is potentially a $10 million loan that we can take on.
Basically, if you started last week, they can have it done posthumously, so you.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. So that's been a frustrating process. And then maybe, John, do you want to give a really quick update on 1230 in particular, but 1230 and Charlie and some of the pavement analysis that we're going to be going through starting Friday?
Yes, ma'am. So the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th, we're going to have both non-destructive and boring and coring, which would be destructive testing on runway 1230 and taxiway Charlie. On Friday, we'll begin with taxiway Charlie. Won't be NOTAM closed. but we will put a work in progress note them out. And then we'll work around the traffic utilizing 0826 and taxiway echo as alternative routes. Continuation of the Kinley Horn project, which is to determine our maintenance plan, our maintenance schedule for our paved surfaces, and then in concert with all the upcoming test and evaluation that's occurring. Runway 1230 will be closed on Saturday and Sunday. Tower will be open to facilitate safety, and then it'll be open during the evening hours. So the testing is primarily, and the closure is primarily for the daytime hours. 0700, roughly about 1700 Monday, Saturday and Sunday.
Do we have the big X's to marker it off, or are we just going to utilize the tower?
We're just going to utilize the tower. We're not utilizing the big X's because we're going to leave the runway open just in case there's an emergency or there's an unscheduled large aircraft that needs to use runway 1230. We have the capability to bring the personnel and equipment off the runway. We just need a little bit of time. I'm not advertising it as open. It is going to be closed just because of the requirement for, just to mitigate the interference with the construction process on 1230. So.
Thank you very much. Unless board has any other specific questions about the CEO report, a lot going on in the commission.
If there's no further questions, thank you so much. We have no board committees to report. Do the directors have any comments that they would like to make?
When do you anticipate the sidewalk being usable?
So, sidewalk project. What we aim to do is tie it in directly with the county project. So I got a lot of pretty detailed reports back from the engineer Lynn Brooks at the County Roads Department. We had a surveyor come out and just kind of gauge the elevation to make sure the sidewalks are actually going to line up. And it turns out it's off by up to about 4 inches. So we're going back to the county to try to understand exactly what their elevation is going to be so it meets. So we've got about 60% completed of the concrete. The remaining 40%, we're just waiting to get that information back from the county. Last I heard, county's doing their sidewalk project January. Have you heard anything else? Kathy or Doug, have you guys heard anything about?
January's the last I heard.
The county sidewalk bids and the one for the sidewalk up to the shopping center being awarded by the Board of Supervisors as we speak.
Oh, okay.
Today.
Okay, great. So, at worst case scenario, if we had to wait until they got started, but I don't think so. I think we can get the information out of them and just finish it. We've got Sharper Landscaping out here this week, starting on trimming the oleander, starting on Belshaw. So I'm hoping that sidewalk will be usable soon.
So we just need their engineering so we know what elevation to dye our sidewalk at.
So that's the concern, is if it doesn't line up, we might end up having to rip out a slab or two. We don't want to have to do that. So we'd rather just get the data ahead of time.
Put a slight slope,
Yeah.
Right.
You could build a little ramp. If you
4 inches of slope.
Oh, you'll have the skateboards there.
Are there any other direct comments? If not, is there any public comment?
I have a comment.
Yes,
It's
sir.
nothing to tie in with Mr. Valentine. I would like to express appreciation for the sidewalk project. It's going to alleviate a major safety concern. I think it's going to encourage people to exercise. I know my wife and I use that route often when we go out for exercise and walking the dog, and it's going to be great to not wonder if somebody's going to see us as they come around the flying bends. So thank you very much. That's much appreciated. And then I'd like to wish Director Valentine well on his semi-retirement.
Hope I can adjust. And I had another question. We're gonna have this sidewalk completed, it's gonna come onto the airport. Then what?
So right now, the idea is just to get that stretch completed, because that blind corner is.
I agree, it's a huge safety
And
concern.
so there's a couple of things that we're considering, and the challenge that we have is, On the north side of Savovich, it's not an ideal place to put the sidewalk because there's just not enough space. And on the south side of Savovich, there's all kinds of utilities that run along here. So the question we'll have to probably ask at some point is, do we want a sidewalk over the utilities? Which we could do as long as we're not my understanding is as long as we're not building structures on them, we can put concrete down. Just knowing that it might have to get ripped out before we put in under utilities. So if we do it, we'll probably find a way. They built a little bridge over the culvert here, and it's just a matter of getting across the tracks, down Roper a little ways, and then down Savovich. That would be the idea.
My concern is we're, if you will, bringing people onto the airport via the sidewalk. Do we need to address a pedestrian crossing across Belshaw? Or something just for safety issues?
Yeah.
At least note it somehow crossing, because it seems like something's missing there at the moment.
Right.
Other than
Right, what we'll probably do is bring it down south of the stop sign, because coming up again around that curve, it's just.
it seems logical there, and then to allow them to cross.
That brings up a little sign I just noticed as I came on the airport, that traffic does not stop. Why don't you just put a stop sign out there?
So that was another controversial topic, and we did talk to some of the employers about it. If you were driving west on Savovich at 4:30 in the afternoon, you understand why.
Yeah.
Because there's already a huge, you guys could probably attest to this, a huge
Right.
line of cars that are waiting to turn, mostly right on the Belshaw.
If we really want to get sophisticated, we could put a light there.
Yeah.
Just,
Oh.
just kidding. I'm just,
Oh.
You talk
yeah.
Just build a nice big elevated walkway, you know, with a spiral stair, and, you know.
No, that wouldn't meet with the ADA standards.
We've been trying to find ways to, alleviate some of the traffic congestion, which is definitely a good problem to have. And we worked with Caltrans a little bit. The big one really was figuring out what it would take to make a second left turn lane right
Yeah,
here.
that's
And they won't
necessary.
do it because it's less than a 90-degree turn.
Yeah.
So they would need to be able to plan so that two semis could turn the corner together.
It's not
That
very
was-
nice.
But they did claim that they extended the light at the intersection. I don't know if that ever happened. They claimed it.
Well, they sure as hell, extended the light down here at Mono Street. I sat there trying to make a left turn on Sunday morning after going to the grocery store and gave up and just drove around it because I don't know what the problem is on Sierra Highway.
Facial recognition.
Yeah. That's what we need.
Is there any other public comment? Yes, sir. Go ahead and step to the mic, state your name.
Good afternoon, and thank you for letting me speak. I know there are several companies with the advocates of the airport, and they keep hiring people, new employees. Shari Ramos, S-H-A-R-I, and the last name is B-A-R-N-O-O-S.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know because of by the lack of availability for apartments, accommodation is what I'm actually talking about. Houses, apartments. They either end up being hotels for months, or they end up going to Tehachapi or Lancaster. Of course, Lancaster and Tehachapi are larger places, so they're more of a sort of nightlife. But I thought what I'd like to do is we have an 18-unit apartment building in Mojave, which is about a mile and a half from the airport. I thought I'd bring it to your attention, and maybe that way they may get to know that there is such a, it's a gated apartment complex, relatively safe, and we have availability, so I just wanted to bring that up. We actually have flyers for it.
Where?
It's, do you know where the fire station is?
Yes.
It's right across the fire station. There's a small road called Meyer
Myers.
Road.
Yeah.
Meyer.
Right.
And
The
it's
first
right
airport.
there. It's close to the, right next to the church.
Oh, or Catholic Church,
Correct. And we spent a lot of money renovating it.
which is needed desperately. Good.
That's a lot of money. And as I said, it's gated, and so it's now a decent people. And we've got actually 3 people from Spaceport that are already in there.
Good.
And we still have some vacancies just in case. And if a flyer would help, then I'll get back to you as well.
I'm happy to take that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
When you
doing
say
that.
gated, key card access or?
Remote.
Remote, okay. I think that's great.
Is there any other public comment? I don't think in all the time I've been on the board, we've had three public comments. This is, we're busy. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Robert Morgan, and I work at Scale Composites. Been working here for 21 years, and I'm trying to understand if the airport has had some sort of philosophy shift, or there's a general plan that I'm not aware of. My information comes through the grapevine. It's probably not accurate, so maybe you guys could comment, but it seems like the airport wants to become landlords for all the T hangars and all those other hangars. It's not clear to me if there's been a published philosophy or something that you guys are tending towards, or I'd like to maybe understand the long-term plan, because what I get is from people who are not getting leases renewed and things like that. I've been interested in purchasing some hangars here, and just to kind of understand what the long-term plan is.
Well, you're welcome to contact Karina, our Chief Executive Officer, and she's aware of all the plans that the board has and what her marching orders are. So she would be the contact that you would talk to on that.
Okay, so
that would be your best. That would be your best bet.
I have spoke to Karina. So the question came up. 935 is on a month-by-month, for instance, and the owner of that has asked for a renewal of the lease, and he was told no. But I'm considering buying the hangar, and of course I wouldn't buy it unless I have the opportunity to get a long-term lease. So it's not really clear to me why you would grant me assuming you would approve the sale, why would you give me a long-term lease but not the current owner? So it's that kind of thing that's kind of confusing as to what the motives are. Is it?
I think that's an item in closed session, so we wouldn't be discussing it here. It'd be inappropriate to discuss it in detail because it's not an agenda item. But we do note your comment. We appreciate your comment.
It was submitted last week in time to be on.
It's in closed session.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it in closed session, and then actually the board will come out of closed session to vote on those two items.
So again, my question I think is a general one, because I'm intimate with a lot of people that own airplanes here, and everyone seems to be kind of in a panic. And what I'm saying is it'd be to your advantage to sort of state what is your intent to accumulate most of those hangars over time as the leases expire or not, or because it's, you could have like a mass exodus of people that are concerned that this is not some place that you could buy and operate general aviation airplanes. And so that's what I'm raising to you, not this specific one hangar, but I've been renting in some other ones, and there's all kinds of rumors flying around. It's not real clear what your intent is, so maybe it's to your benefit, everyone's benefit, that you would state, if you have a general plan, if you make that available.
So,
appreciate the comment.
I'm happy to meet with you anytime. I did send you an email inviting you to come meet with me. I don't know if you received that.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one and kind of walk you through what's happening. What's going on right now over the last probably year up through 18 is a lot of the leases that were originally done in the 80s are expiring. And that's why this is a topic right now within the T-hangar area. But I'm happy to sit down with you and explain to you some of the terms that are in the contracts.
So I'm aware of what the terms are, but that doesn't suggest what your intent is. So in other words, the lease might say we have the option of first right of refusal, we don't have to renew leases, but it doesn't say what your plan is. And so when people are making commitments to make purchases and things like that, they'd like to understand what's.
Scott, do you want to address this real quick? Is he still there?
Well, yeah, I'm there.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I speak just a little louder.
Put the microphone closer.
Go ahead.
So, as Karina started to say, in the 70s and 80s, the airport entered into land leases with a number of people who constructed hangars as investments, and some of those leases were 30 years, some of those leases were 40 years. And at the end of those leases, they were written such that the airport, the improvements that were constructed either became the airport's property or the airport had a right of first refusal to purchase. the hangars. And this was just a standard business transaction that the airport did, where someone came in, built a hangar, got a return on their investment in exchange for a land lease, and then when that was up, the airport had the right to buy those hangars. As those leases are expiring, the airport is looking at exercising its right of first refusal for those hangars. In some cases, and in some cases it's not. This is mostly handled on a case-by-case basis. Because of that, the quote-unquote written policy that the gentleman is asking for doesn't exist. We handle this as each lease expires, and we weigh the pros and cons of each hangar that comes up for purchase. And so that's how we've been handling it the last several years. This is just a natural consequence of the leases that were written as they were written, and the agreement that the original tenants made with the airport.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. More like an explanation of what's in the leases, which I understood, but it's not really an
Well,
explanation.
he stated that it's really on a case-by-case basis. So,
And the gentleman's welcome to call me if he has any questions.
Okay.
thank you so much for your comment. Is there any other public comment? If there is none, we will move to closed session. Thank you.